constant pushing of what was acceptable.
He had this thing where he just questioned everything you did. For whatever reason, Ken's gonna shoot you down and pick your work apart into 1,000 pieces. You won't know why, and he won't have a better alternative.
It's such a difficult thing to describe if you haven't experienced it. Throughout the few years I worked there, I was constantly trying to manage his emotions and trying to enter every interaction in a way that wasn't going to blow up.
This wasn't someone I didn't get along with. This wasn't a bad job. It was, I think, a very cruel person in a position of power who liked to make people feel bad, to make himself feel better.
By 2020, the studio needed to implement a new policy in which any employee could decline to have a one-on-one interaction with Ken if they felt he was overstepping. At any point, they could say the word pause and the conversation would end then and there, with other members of Mountain's leadership team coming in to help mediate.
What kind of studio needs a safe word though? Let's be honest.
Ken's behaviour was heavily criticised within the studio both before and after Tony's tweets were published, and this would sometimes lead to moments in which apologies were made and Ken would promise to change that behaviour going forwards, which some employees describe as him having had good intentions, but then inevitably he'd relapse later on. Others offer a far less charitable view.
The team would sit around and basically beg Ken to acknowledge his management style. He was given chances, he was given warnings, he was given strategies, and he was given aid. And that's why at this point, it feels like a choice. Negligence at best.
After Florence, Mountains had 2 games in the works, although both have been described to me as being in a bad way due to a variety of factors, one of which was the high turnover of staff. The first game, codenamed Sugarloaf, was Ken's passion project. He'd secured funding from Annapurna Interactive, who you'll be hearing plenty about throughout this investigation, after they'd published Florence in 2018. Sugarloaf began life a little closer to what Florence had been. It was talked of as a narrative experience about travelling abroad, perhaps in Hong Kong or Melbourne or New York, but at some point that idea ended up being scrapped and it was replaced with something else entirely. It became a game of terraforming islands, populating those islands with procedurally generated towns which could then be explored and documented, and there'd be NPCs and dynamic storytelling. It was, for a lack of a better word, bigger. Former Mountains employees have described it to me as being extremely ambitious and also as having spun its wheels in research and development for years, as entire feature sets were prototyped only to be scrapped again or started from scratch. But the game that most of the Mountain staff were working on, and well, the one that saw all of this come to such a dramatic end, was called Tambo. Again, that's a working title.